Just the family, and we had friends, and it was nothing real big. It was my mother's home. We married at home.
How about you, Phyllis?
Oh, I had a St. Paul wedding. And it was wonderful. It was on a Saturday afternoon. The church was full because at that time, my being a part and growing up in the church, I was everybody's child. So everybody came. And at a wedding party of 6, Reverend Charleston performed the wedding. He did a lot of marriage counseling prior to the ceremony. But I had a wonderful wedding. And at that time, we were able to use downstairs for the reception hall. I had, it was an exciting place. If any of you remember Miss Bertha Bradley, she kind of took over the reception. So everything was really done beautifully. So I had a lovely wedding, and I'm proud of it. In fact, I was showing pictures today to someone who came by of my mother and his mother at the receiving line.
How about your wedding, Ms. Daly?
Well, as I stated earlier, they didn't have a big wedding. We went to Reverend Charleston's home and got married.
Okay.
And then we had a little reception at my sister's house.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Now, you two ladies can probably answer this question. I asked you in the back, so it's not a surprise. I want you to give
my
everybody
grandma.
in this audience, you ready for the question?
Yeah.
What is the secret to a successful marriage? Yeah, they did the same thing in the back. I was going to ask that question.
Being friends first.
Being friends is really important.
And respecting each other.
Okay. Being friends and respecting each
And
other.
listening.
Listening.
You gotta listen. And you have to know when to keep quiet too. So,
Friends, respect, and learn to not talk so much. What do you think, Ms. Massey, this secret to a successful marriage?
Well, you have to be agreeable. You have to work together. Give a little, take a little.
Give a little, take a little.
Right.
Ms. Daly.
Well, I think to make a successful marriage, you have to learn to live your life and not let, your family or your friends tell you. Sometimes you have misunderstanding, and then maybe you go and tell maybe your mother, your siblings or something, then they'll tell you what you should do and this and that. And sometimes that, it doesn't let your marriage work like it, should.
Okay. So for Ms. Lou Massey and Ms. Daly, both of you have children. I want to know about your first child. What was that like having your first child? Seeing your child for the first time?
I only had one child, one son, and when he was born, I was talking all while he was being born. And when he was born, he looked just like my husband's mother. Favored her very much. So a lot of people that knew him, knew my husband, said he looks just like him, but those that knew me say he looks like me. But I think he looked very much like his father's people rather than mine.
Ms. Daly?
When my first child was born, it was just a happy moment, in my life. In fact, I'm the mother of 3, but the middle child died at birth.
Okay.
Then, in the later years, when
Relax.
the second was born, it was it was a very happy time for me. But then later on, Santa was born. It was in January of 1958. And I was really happy to have two daughters and trying to, go to beauty school and what have you. Mm-hmm. But then, it said then in July of 58, I was studying to take my state board exam. And my husband loved baseball, so he was asking me about going to the baseball game with him. But then I said, no, I don't want to go. My mind is on studying because I don't want to go to Lansing at one time to take my state board exam. So finally he went on. He said, I'll see you when the game is over. And I gave the kids a bath and put them to bed, and I was sitting in the kitchen studying. So about 10:30, the doorbell rang. And I said, oh, James forgot his door keys. And I went to the door, but it was the police. But anyway, he never came home. Then I thought about, Santa was, I think, had just turned 7 months. And Yvonne was 8 years old. And I just felt that my world had come to an end. But through all of that, I am just so proud of my children.
I never gave birth to children. However, I think I have touched the lives of many children. I was involved with the school system for 45 years. Plus, I have nieces, nephews, all the way down, whose lives I have been involved with. I have seen struggles with them. I have seen accomplishments. I've seen it all with the children I have worked with in the school system. On Mother's Day, I think I get maybe 10 to 15 Mother's Day cards from students I had touched through the years. Wow. So I do feel, you can be a mother.
And one of the questions I want to ask you, because I know you didn't have children, is in being responsible for helping young people develop, what does that feel like? And is there any one particular child that you think, man, this child really, really responded and they've done this or that because of my involvement with them?
It's a wonderful feeling. There's an experience I had. I hope it's not inappropriate to share here. But I was at the doctor's office, and I went in to get, for some test. And he walked in and he said, Mrs. Massey, you have to get undressed from the waist up, waist down. And I'll send my assistant in. And in walks one of my former students.
Oh my goodness! Whoa!
And I said, not you!
Oh my goodness!
And the doctor understood, and he understood too, So I've seen successes.
That's a great thing.
I have students who were not as successful. And for many of them, I prayed with them, So.
And prayer is important, and I know that all three of you have a very, very strong spiritual foundation. Were you going to say something, Ms. Daly? No. Okay. So I'm curious.
May I say?
Yes, go ahead.
Many times in the field of counseling, I would have students come in who were really, really disturbed. And, when that's going on, those of you who are counselors and who work with people, there's certain times you can't say anything. Mm-hmm. You just listen. Mm-hmm. And somehow or other, it came to me one day if you just say Jesus, that will bring about a sense of comfort. I was not fired or written up for having students say that, but I could see a calmness come over students by just calling his name. And it's just something about it.
Yes. Okay, by the name of Jesus, amen.
So all of you have a very strong spiritual foundation. So I'm curious as to what role your faith plays in your overall happiness or your life in general.
With me, having faith in God, it's just something about it when you go through things and then you pray and you keep asking the Lord, whatever you're dealing with, and then when you start, getting results. Then
Good. Tallulah.
Well, I have faith that the Lord will take care of me because I'm alone. And I have faith in God that everything's going to be all right.
Phyllis, please forgive me for calling you Phyllis and
It's fine.
Tallulah, but because of the same last names. So what role has St. Paul played in your life in terms of you being where you are spiritually?
It has played a tremendous part in my life because I feel that besides the home training, I think I got some training in St. Paul that you can only get from a place where you're around people who care about you
Yes.
and people who support you. Growing up in Sunday school, there's certain things you have to do.
Yes.
And those things stay with you. We had to, prior to your time, we had to learn the Apostles' Creed. We had to learn the call to worship. We had to learn the Lord's Prayer. Those things were important, and they are still important, even though we're not at that stage. And those things have really had an impact on my life.
Very good. Okay, Ms. Massey, Tallulah, you've been a member since before it moved down the street?
Yes, I started St. Paul. My father was looking for a church, and he finally wound up at I think they call it the Seed House or something. Anyway, he joined up at St. Paul at Shane and Jay, and that's where we started. I've been attending St. Paul since I was about 5 or 6 years old. And there's a picture on the wall downstairs with my father's picture on it. He was an usher, and the picture dated 1927, and he passed in 1928. And so I've been attending church. I'm 98 years old.
Look at
And I have been attending St. Paul since I was about 5 or 6 years old.
A lot of history there. See, Ms. Daly, you've been a member for a while also. I'm curious about the decision to build a new church, and what was that like for the congregation to say, let's build this new building just a few blocks from where we are?
Well, I think, they were very, excited. But I was always amazed at how much, seemed like that we could accomplish at that time, with such, less money. But it's just, to me it was just, amazing. And I often think sometime now, with things like they are, how, did we do it?
I've also often heard this story, I don't know if it's a rumor, that when they built the church, that the hole was so big that white folk used to come to say they'll never build anything to fill that.
That's true.
Yeah.
That is true.
That's right.
Well, I remember one day Reverend Charleston said there was some white people passing. And said they looked up and asked him, said, is this a white congregation? Because they weren't used to, black people building from the ground.
Yeah. And I believe it was built by a black company, designed by black architects. And that's a historic feat when you consider when it was built in the 1950s. That's an amazing thing to be done. Any particular memories about the church being built or any stories around that for many of you?
Other than, walking, I remember walking from the old church to here on that glorious morning.
Okay.
And I think I participated in one of the services that day, probably greetings or something like that.
Okay.
But it was a massive undertaking. And we received press from everywhere. We got all of the Detroit papers picked up on this because this was an event.
Okay. I bet it was festive too.
Oh, that's
So I'm going to do a couple things. I want to have some questions from the audience, and we have some cards. If you can pass the cards out. To write your question on the card as clearly as you can, and I'm going to pick the questions and ask. And one thing I want to get away from, last week we had a lot of conversation between people in the audience, and we like to keep the questions coming to the guest and not among yourselves. So if anybody have a question you'd like to ask, please write it on the card for us. And while that's being done, we'll ask a few more questions. So when you were coming up in St. Paul, who did you admire most?
For me, it was Willie Wilson.
You mean in the membership?
Yes.
Well, naturally, everybody loves it. Reverend Johnson. Well, Reverend Johnson was the type of person who involved himself in your life because I can say that the AME Church afforded me the opportunity to learn to speak. We had to do stuff. We had to do reports. Every Black History, it was Negro History Week at that time.
Okay.
He would supply us with copies of Richard Allen's book,
Okay.
and we would have to write an essay or something, and we would have to get up and recite it. So there were opportunities, to express yourself at that time, as well as all of the other activities that went on in the church.
Ms. Daly, you were about to say something?
I didn't see it while it was on my mind. I can't think right now. When you turn 29, sometime you'll remember.
So I'm curious, and you mentioned something. So we are now called African Americans. What is your thought about being called colored, Negro, Black, African American?
Really, I have no problems with being called Black or Afro-American, but I really would rather be just an American.
Okay. How about you, Ms. Tulumassey?
I'm the same way. Why put yourself in a class saying black? You don't say white American. But every time you see a dark person, it's a black American. And we are really segregating ourselves. We have the black this and the black that. I think we're going backwards.
Ms. Daly?
I'm very much of her opinion. I am very much of Toulouse, opinion.
Okay. Very good. So the questions, are the cards ready? Okay. So let me ask you this then. We didn't actually talk about this question. And I know one of you went to Washington, D.C. to meet some man in this big fancy house. Who was that?
They were?
You traveled 13 hours on a train to get there.
That was me.
Oh, that was you. So tell us about that.
It was a beautiful trip. I had always said I would like, to go to visit the White House while you had, a black president.
Okay. Did you think you'd see an African American or a black man in that office during your lifetime?
No, didn't. But I was hoping that I would.
What about you, Ms. Massey?
No, not really.
Oh, you know what this is? Oh, wow. This is a picture one of our members brought. Is this Tulu? Mr. Harris? Yes, Harris. This is Tulu on here?
Tulu, yes. He's on there.
Can you find yourself on there? You know, you recognize this event?
Who's in this thing?
Michigan Credit Union League.
Oh,
Is that when we had the credit union?
I guess so.
Oh, wow. You can pass it down. It looks like a lot of folks that don't look like us. We don't be heard.
Am I supposed to be on here?
Well, Ralph, let's look at this with Ms. Massey after we get through. Since we have a few more questions I want to get to from the audience.
My question, how many St. Paul folks was in the Great Lakes Choir?
Oh,
Great Lakes.
I see the Great Lakes Choir over here.
Well, Ralph, let's do this afterwards, yeah.
The only ones I
remember. Thank you.
I never heard of that.
So we have a couple questions from the audience. One of the questions that said, what was it like to feed your family back in the day? Was there plenty of food or was food scarce?
Well, at my home, it was plentiful because we grew everything.
Ms. Massey? Either one of you?
It was,
Go on, Nancy.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Tallulah, sorry.
I've never been hungry.
Go ahead.
I've always had a meal.
And were you going to say something?
we always had enough. It might not have been what we wanted. But, and I can remember the days that my mother would do rutabagas. And I hate them. But rutabagas were inexpensive and they made a meal. But to this day, I don't eat rutabagas.
Here's a question for Ms. Daly. And I think you made reference to this, and someone wants to know, what is watch care?
When I was growing up, before you really became like a full-page member, okay, let me put it like this. Say you move someplace and you move in there temporarily. Then you unite with the church. So you wasn't a full-page member, you just joined under watch care because you wanted to be that long.
Okay.
I hope you understand what I'm
Yeah.
trying to say. Okay.
And this is a fun question. It said, during the 40s and 50s, who were your favorite entertainers? Male and female.
Ella Fitzgerald.
Ella Fitzgerald.
Who did a Tuscan
Ella
Task?
Fitzgerald. How about you, Tallulah?
Early 40s and 50s.
How about your favorite entertainer in general?
I like all music, so I didn't really have a favorite.
So when you were in high school, or you didn't have a favorite male star that you liked to listen to?
Not really.
Ms. Daly?
James Brown.
Really? Didn't know that. Did you know that? I didn't know that. Oh no. I didn't know that was her
James
favorite.
Brown that you liked?
I don't know, but
I just learned something about my grandma. I'll be done. James Brown.
Miss Phyllis Massey, someone wants to know when you were born.
Oh, that's, you know what Mark Twain says? You don't tell it. I would put it a situation only Valerie and Darlene would know. When my sister passed away, my husband is buried there. We had two lots there and 2 lots here. I decided that I didn't like going to the back, so Darlene helped me do something near the front. So this thing was built. The engraver called my house the week of Thanksgiving saying, Miss Massey, you got everybody's date of birth and date of death except yours. I said, when I go.
You fill that in, I agree.
And Darlene assured me that I wasn't the only one who didn't put date of birth and date of death on it. I think that's personal and private. And I feel comfortable. God has been good to me. I'm in my 80s, but I just don't want to be that specific.
Wow.
Another question, how has the role in women's church treated, or how have the roles of women changed in the church?
Quite a bit. At one time, all the stewards were men. All the trustees were men. All the ministers were men. That had been a big change.
Were you surprised when we got a female minister? Did that go over well with you?
I felt pretty good about getting a female minister when she came, yeah.
Yes, okay. Ms. David?
No, I was excited because I believe just like, the Lord called me, preach, they called, women.
Watch your arm. Watch your arm. I think it's watch this arm. It's hitting. Yeah, just watch your arm. It's hitting.
Oh, that's what that. I'm looking back there.
I love it. I love the elders.
So, we probably two more questions. This question is very interesting. Where do you see St. Paul today, and what changes need to be made to help us grow?
Well,
I kind of think if we reach out more, and like when visitors come, it's just a certain way, like, it's things that you can do. Maybe they don't have a church home, but then it's something that we can do. Maybe we could be more friendly. Or they might say, well, I enjoy them, or, go back. But now I've heard, people say that's why they don't want to, because the people are not friendly.
Okay. Phyllis?
I see changes being made right now. I'm comfortable with the changes, and I've always felt that to do anything you have to take some risk.
Yeah.
And I'm just proud that Reverend Spivey takes these risks and goes ahead and does, things that we would not ordinarily do. I was privileged to be at the workshop a couple of Saturdays ago, And there were some interesting suggestions as to where we need to go. And many of you who are here today were at that meeting. So I think some of those suggestions we could very well adopt. But we do need to bring people in.
Toulouse, what do you think?
I think that the church should unlock the doors sometimes in the afternoon, have some kind of programs or something happening here at the church on Sunday afternoon. We close the doors and the church isn't open again until next Sunday. I think we should put forth some efforts to have some kind of programs or something going on.
So today's a good start.
Yes, it is.
There's a question here which I think Ms. Daly may understand. It says, did the asking for the pen work? Did the gentleman you married, it said, did him asking for the pen help to get you?
You done stumped her.
I don't have the answer.
So let me ask this, let me be a little sister. What would it take for a gentleman to get your attention today?
Oh, watch out, man.
Come
Not
through,
an
Grandma.
ink pen.
You done made my grandma blush.
I don't have the answer.
I like your response. Let's just go down the line. Ms. Phyllis Massey, what would it take for a gentleman to get your attention today?
Well, I like to go out to dinner. I like attention.
Attention? Okay. And then Toulouse?
Get my attention.
Yeah.
Ain't so cute.
Just being me.
Well, as we get ready to wind up, I want to ask you.
Well,
Yes.
before you wind up, I must say, now I have known, I'll put it this way, I have no conscious memory of not knowing these three women. And I must say, and I probably should not say this in front of my wife, but growing up, and she knows this, I had the most god-awful crush on Phyllis. Now, tonight, I have just learned that she met and had started dating Ernest in 1956, when I was 7. And Phyllis, I have to tell you this. From what I've learned tonight, I feel like you were cheating on me.
You 7 to think you've been cheated on. Isn't it cute? That's my grandma Adrian right there. That's my nana.
Thank you very much.
And they so tickled. Woo! Woo! Wait a minute. Catch it.
I'm going to ask you, Phyllis, do you have a response to that? So we have two final questions before we leave this evening. And one, I would like to know, have you accomplished what you wanted out of life? I'd like for each one of you to give me your response. We'll start with you, Toulouse.
Well, starting with me, I'm lived a very uneventful life. And I have never really expected too much, but I'm really satisfied at the way I stand today.
Phyllis,
I appreciate the life that I've lived. I am grateful for the life that I've lived. I've had challenges, I've had victories, I've had all of the things that make life worth living. And I wouldn't want to really trade any of those things. All of the uncomfortable situations have only made me a stronger person.
Ms. Daly,
Well, I feel that I'm truly blessed to have lived the number of years that I've lived. And I am very, comfortable with the way my life is. I still maintain a reasonable portion of my health.
Praise the Lord.
And I'm still able to live alone and to do things for myself. So I'm very comfortable.
so last question is, what advice would you like to give to us this evening before you leave? Well, I do have one more question after this one.
What advice?
Yes.
Live life as it comes. Enjoy yourselves. You only live once. Keep your hopes up.
You only live once. That's actually very 2016. It's called YOLO. You only live once. YOLO.
Oh,
You feel it?
Just say,
Don't
follow
repeat
the
it.
golden rule.
Live by the golden rule.
Yes, live by the golden rule.
And Ms. Daly.
Enjoy life, to the fullest.
And the question I forgot to ask, and I like to always ask this, if you could go back and talk to a 20-year-old Helen, or a 20-year-old Phyllis, or a 20-year-old Toulouse, what would you tell them to look out for or be aware of? Would you say give that boy a pencil early?
I'd say choose friends wisely.
Choose friends wisely. How about you, Miss Massey? What would you tell your 20-year-old self? If you could have the knowledge you have now and go back and talk to yourself at age 20, what would you tell yourself or warn yourself about?
well, when I was younger, I was into a lot of sports. I did roller skating, ice skating, tennis, baseball, basketball, you name it, bowling. I bowled until I was 74. And that was when I had the stroke. And other than that, I lived a calm life.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Davis.
Baseball.
Baseball. Well, thank you, ladies, very much for joining us this evening.
That was awesome. Fantastic.
I want to say it's not easy to put your life out like that in front of a bunch of folks. And so I appreciate you stepping up and helping us make this project really successful. And thank you very much. If you'd like to talk to ladies, feel free to do so. They're going to be around for a few minutes. Thank you very much for coming. Next week, can you have your attention for one moment?
Hey guys.
Can you have your attention for one moment? Next week,
The lady in the room,
have
that is my grandmother.
a really exciting duo.
This is my family behind me.
Have you come
This is my auntie back.
quiet for one moment, please. Next week, we have two exciting guests. We have Roderick Miller, who is the head of Detroit Economic Growth Commission, DEGC, and Orlando Bailey, who is the outreach coordinator for Eastside Community Network. The conversation next week will be a lot like this, but we're really going to be focusing on what is the role of young people in developing the city. You're not developing the city for someone like myself, I'm too old. We're building it for a younger population who's going to age into it, and we want to know what role do they have or can they have in developing the city or developing plans for the city. So please come back out next week. After that, we have some folk that you know coming up. We have Dr. Curtis Ivory, the fourth week, who is the president of Wayne County Community College. We're going to talk about education and the importance of education in the Black community. And last but not least, we have Wilson Copeland and Lorna Thompson. And they will be talking about some of the same things from their perspective. And we're going to be talking about success with them in particular and getting some strategies for success and some things they've done that have made them successful in life. They're here today. Thank you all for coming and joining us. Turn the news back on, please. Go ahead.
I want to say next year, the church will be 100 years old, and there are two members, two families in the church that helped to establish the church. The Shelton family, I don't know whether they know it or not, but their aunt was one of the ones that was in the establishment of the church, and Miss Gail Potts Alexander, her aunts were a part of establishing the church.
We look forward to the 100th celebration next year. Thank you all for coming.
Okay. Well, that's my aunt right there, the short one. I know y'all really can't hear me now, but I'm gonna tell you the short lady right there, that's my aunt. Okay, awesome. This lady right here with the striped shirt on, the shawl, that's my aunt, my Auntie Faye. I'm periscoping. I periscoped the whole thing, and I'll give you the link for it. I videotaped the whole thing. I'm glad you got up. Yeah, that was awesome. Yeah, and that's my mommy.
So what do you think?
That was awesome, mommy. I know, that's my twin, right? I periscoped the whole thing. It's my godmother. How are you? I'm good. How are you? I periscoped the whole thing, so it'll be on Facebook. It'll be on Catch Me. I'll send you the links. But yes, this is everybody. That's the back of my godmother. But they're my families right there. But yeah, I will call you guys when I get in the car.
This was last year.
Really? This was. No. That was awesome. I don't know how to. It's on Catch Me.
There's a lot of people here tonight, wasn't
It is. Well, your hair is gorgeous.
you were a vendor for one.
Okay, I'll call you when I get in the car, Nick.